Greetings. Welcome to Dr. English's Book Lovers Book Club. I'm Dr. English and I teach English. Today I'm reviewing one of my all-time favorite books ever. I go back to it over and over again. It's almost like I have the whole book memorized. And if you're not familiar with it, in this lifetime, you should read this book. It is called Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Paterson. I bought it when my son was young. I think it was in Jim Trelease's Read Aloud Handbook, if I recall. That was probably when I first was introduced to it, because I bought that book back in the days when we were poor, and my son was we went to the library a lot, and I'm sure I checked it out, but I think I eventually bought it. And this is one I got on thrift books because I can't find my book. I must have given it away to someone because I love it so much. So I would say I probably read it, first time in maybe like, I don't remember when. My son was probably little. I'm going to look to see what's the publication date on this. It is 1977. I'm pretty sure I probably read it in about 1979, 70, or 80, 81, something like that. But I can't think of another book that has stayed with me as long as this. And the whole thing of Jess and Leslie and that relationship that they build. And you add in the part where he has Miss Edmonds, who's the art teacher, and or the music teacher, but she's an artist, and that and the poverty that Jess and his family is in. It's just, he's right outside of Washington D.C., so it'd be, probably rural Virginia, and you just know that he sticks out like a sore thumb because he likes to draw, and he's really quite good. And when I was growing up, I drew all the time. I loved doodling. I loved drawing. So I really, really related to Jess in this story. But Leslie has my heart. I mean, anybody who's read it knows that Leslie is the kid who comes from Washington, D.C. Her parents are wealthy. They want to get out of the city. They want to raise their daughter in a different way. And, you just can't help it. She just doesn't try to be anybody but herself. And I think that's something that this is a book every kid should read, because it teaches you so much about just being yourself and not let other people, try to influence who you are. She was so self-confident and self-assured at such a young age, and I love that about the character of Leslie. And Jess is, he has so many things that he's got on his mind, and one of them is running, and he wants to be that still sticks to me. Who wants to be the fastest kid in the 5th grade. And so it's probably the saddest book I've ever read in my entire life. It doesn't matter how many times I read this, I sob when I read this book. And I know some of you have probably read it, and maybe some of you have not. So I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it is one of the most sad books. And this little book that I got on thrift book was Patrick Hayes was the person who had this book. And in this book, I just have to point this out because it was so precious to me. And there's notes after every chapter that say, stop, notes for reflection. And I just love this so much. And then there's also a prediction. I'm not going to tell you what Patrick predicted, but Patrick, wherever you are, somewhere, you are spot on, buddy. So I love that. And the illustrations in here are so good. Oh, and I have to say, when he makes his prediction, he writes it out, and then in red and with an exclamation point, and then he scribbles it all out like, no, that cannot happen. And so I just love that every chapter it says notes for reflection, stop, notes for reflection. And it's in green ink. So I'll probably hang on to this one simply because I just absolutely love this. Here's one that says notes for reflection, done for now. So I think that Patrick must have really liked the book because he made a good prediction. So I'm going to read from the beginning of the book, and keep in mind that I said that Jess wanted to be the fastest boy in the 5th grade. You can run with the 4s, Leslie. He said it loudly enough to make sure Fulcher could hear him, and then concentrate on the runners. See, he told himself, you can stand up to a creep like Fulcher. No sweat. They didn't want to allow Leslie to run. She came by and said she wanted to run with the boys. And they all griped about it, but not Jess. Bobby Miller won the 3s easily. He was the best of the 4th graders, almost as fast as Fulcher. But not as good as me, Jess thought. He was beginning to get really excited now. There wasn't anybody in the forest who could give him much of a race. Still, it would be better to give Fulcher a scare by running well in the heat. Leslie lined up beside him on the right. He moved a tiny bit to the left, but she didn't seem to notice. At the bang, Jess shot forward. It felt good, even the rough ground against the bottom of his worn sneakers. He was pumping good. He could almost smell Gary Fulcher's surprise at his improvement. The crowd was noisier than they'd been during the other heats. Maybe they were all noticing. He wanted to look back and see where the others were, but he resisted the temptation. It would seem conceited to look back. He concentrated on the line ahead. It was nearing with every step. Oh, Miss Bessie, if you can see me now. He felt it before he saw it. Someone was moving up. He automatically pumped harder. Then the shape was there in his sideways vision. Then suddenly pulling ahead. He forced himself now. His breath was choking him and the sweat was in his eyes. But he saw the figure anyhow. The faded cutoffs crossed the line a full 3 feet ahead of him. Leslie turned to him with a wide smile on her tan face. He stumbled and without a word began half walking, half trotting over to the starting line. This was the day he was going to be the champion, the best runner of the 4th and 5th grades, and he hadn't even won his heat. There was no cheering at either end of the field. The rest of the boys seemed as stunned as he. The teasing would come later, he felt sure, but at least for the moment none of them were talking. Okay, Fulcher took over. He tried to appear very much in charge. Okay, you guys, you can line up for the finals. He walked over to Leslie. Okay, you had your fun. You can run up to the hopscotch now. But I won the heat, she said. Gary lowered his head like a bull. Girls aren't supposed to play on the lower field. Better get up there before one of the teachers sees you. I want to run, she said quietly. You already did. What's the matter, Fulcher? All Jess's anger was bubbling out. He couldn't seem to stop the flow. What's the matter? Scared to race her? Fulcher's fist went up, but Jess walked away from it. Fulcher would have to let her run now, he knew, and Fulcher did, angrily and grudgingly. She beat him. She came in first and turned her large, shining eyes on a bunch of dumb, sweating, mad faces. The bell rang. Oh, you can't help but love Leslie. She's like, I'm going to run. You can't stop me from running. So this is definitely a book that I would teach in my classes. I know that for some people, 2026, this might seem like a really old book, but it's not. I mean, like, some of the things about their home life and everything is maybe a little bit outdated, but not really. I think there's still people in poverty in certain areas of the country. And so maybe they don't have a cow. I mean, that's the thing. They live on kind of an old farmhouse. And he has to milk Bessie the cow. And he was practicing running. That's where the reference to Bessie is their cow. But I don't think that is too far removed from the reality of kids today. I think, that's something that if they didn't know, their parents could maybe explain it to them. Or as a teacher, you could explain it. So I definitely think probably like if I had a 6th grade class, I would read this out loud to them like I did for my own children and talk about it, what's happening. And I think, there might be a movement where we don't want to read a sad book, but I still think that, it's good for kids to know about, the way life is, what life and death is. And I think that's important. So I just highly recommend this to teach. Like I said, I'd probably teach in a 6th grade class. I definitely have it on my shelf, even for my high school students, because it's still classic young adult literature. And it will always be one of my very favorite books. Someday, I hope, when I'm old and even grayer, that someone will sit by my bedside and read it to me, because there's nothing wrong with a good cry. It reminds you that you're human. So I definitely would recommend reading this if you 6th or 7th grade, 8th grade, any of that age level. But I would say even maybe 5th graders would be able to, you could teach this in elementary, and definitely upper elementary. But 6th grade to me seems like the most perfect age to read this. And with, young adults could still read this, in a class as a, book group. You could do that with the 6th grade, 7th grade class for sure. because it's just so, she's such a good writer. I hope to get another copy of Jacob How I Love, because that's probably another one of my all-time favorite books. I just love that book. And I think my daughter has it because it's one of her favorite books. So, yeah, definitely think you should have it on your shelf. You should have multiple copies of it on your shelf. I don't know which copy this is of mine that I've had, for so long, but I definitely think it's one that is worth your time, and I think everybody should read this book. So, um, and I think that's it. I wish I could talk about this book, for 2 hours, but then I'd give everything away if I did that. But my shout out to Katherine Paterson. She's an incredible writer. She really knows how to evoke emotion from the reader. And she knows how to develop characters that you just fall in love with them. I mean, that's the only way to put it. Like, so few writers can actually do that they get you so connected to the story that you just fall in love with the characters. Like they were real people and not fiction. So, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time. Bye.